Hey, good Saturday morning, everybody. This is Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich. Let's talk about Ida. We'll talk about some of the impacts on the Gulf Coast. The forecast is pretty straightforward. The only question is how strong the storm is going to be at landfall. Cat 4, Cat 5, Cat 3. It's somewhere in that range. And honestly, regardless of that category, the storm surge is going to be tremendous. And that's always really important to remember. The storm surge is not dependent on the category of the storm. So here's a look at the storm. I'm going to take this off real quickly, Jer. The track just for a second because I want to show you a couple things going on in the storm. So this is the close-up image, and you could see that these what we call hot towers, these are basically thunderstorms rotating around the eye, is beginning to take shape. So we're beginning to see that eye wall feature start to develop. And once that closes off, which is happening here shortly, we're likely going to see some significant what we call rapid intensification. I'm going to stop this because you could see on the infrared imagery we're actually starting to see somewhat of an eye start to form. So once that closes off, what's going on in the center of the storm is going to dictate the strength. And that's the toughest part about forecasting intensity, because small things that happen, the eye wall is going to get smaller, bigger. That's going to fluctuate over time. And that's why sometimes the storm can briefly weaken or intensify right before landfall, because it's going through one of these cycles of a new eye wall forming and an old one going away. So that's always tough to time out based on the track. But you can see on the infrared imagery, we certainly have this storm starting to become really stronger and get that eye wall. So let's put the track back on, and I'll show you the track here. I will activate it one more time. Here's the forecast cone. I'll put the official forecast on. So it's going to be a Cat 3 here later tonight with winds of 115, 120 miles per hour, and then approaching the Louisiana coast with 130 mile per hour winds. Now remember, the whole time this is moving ashore, it's pumping this Gulf water into the area, bayous, lakes, tidal lakes, rivers, everything. So that water is going to be piling up. So every high tide over the next 24 to 36 hours is going to get higher. The low tides are going to probably stay high, and the water's not going to rush back out. So the worst storm surge right now is going to be areas of Lower Terrebonne, Lafourche, Jefferson, and Plaquemines Parish. And if you're not familiar with that area, it's essentially these 3 or 4 counties, or in Louisiana they're called parishes. So that would be Terrebonne Parish, Lafourche, Jefferson, and Plaquemines Parish. And then even St. Bernard Parish, which is over here. And I'm going to show you in a minute why that area is going to be so heavily impacted. Now, long range for the Carolinas, yes, this will be a remnant low to our northwest, but we're not overly concerned right now with heavy rainfall. Let me show you the storm surge forecast right now. So you see the highest numbers here, and I'm going to make this smaller so you guys can see the above my head. So this is in feet right above my head. So look up there, and you can see some of these colors down here. You're talking 10 to 15 feet of water down here. Duloc, Cocodrie, which is a big fishing area. The areas you don't see water is because we're expecting levees to hold it back. And that includes the city of New Orleans. So there are mandatory evacuations outside of these levee protection systems, but in the cities, you're counting on the levees to hold up. Will they hold up? That's the big question mark. But right now, based on the guidance, even this model shows the highest water coming up to the levee and not overtopping the levees. So we're not expecting overtopping, but levee failure, like we saw in Katrina, could be an issue. Now remember, in Katrina, if the levees would have held, there wouldn't have been flooding. They breached. They were weak. This is a whole new levee system. So there's a lot of question marks, but we had 5 storms in Louisiana last year to test this. But this is going to be the biggest test of all, because this track right here puts the worst storm surge into New Orleans. What we need to watch for is any subtle shift this direction closer to New Orleans towards this part of the cone could be bad news, but a shift to the west could be slightly better. Regardless, this is the right side or the east side, the dirty side of the storm, where the highest storm surge in wind will be moving in. So let's take a look at a couple other products here just to show you what I'm expecting rainfall-wise. All right, so you can see the storm, obviously devastating impacts likely in parts of Louisiana, but what about the wind speeds, the rainfall, even inland after it makes landfall? Now, based on the current track, you can see we're expecting tremendous amounts of rainfall in Louisiana, anywhere from 10 to 15 to 20 inches. I would say 10 to 20 inches legitimately, but heavy rain moving up through Mississippi and parts of Tennessee, which were hit by heavy flooding, just a week ago today. So that could be bad news. But notice the Carolinas right now. Now, I'm not going to say we're not going to see some rain, but it looks like the worst impacts would stay to our north and west. And we're still probably, 6 or 7 days away from impacts here. So overall, we're not expecting huge impacts here, but doesn't mean we couldn't see some flash flooding. Now, here's a look at the wind speeds. Now, the wind speeds are curious because along and near the coast, we're going to see winds 100 to 100, maybe 50 miles per hour. The further east you go, inland areas, probably in the 60 to 70 range. But I think this corridor, there could be power outages all the way up through Louisiana and central Mississippi. That's why evacuation is always hard. People here want to evacuate, but you got to go way over here or way over here to get out of the way. You go north, you go into the path of the storm. So evacuation takes time, and you got to get way away from the path of the storm. And that's why evacuation is so tough in this area. But if you look, the max up in the corner here says 142.7 miles per hour. So that's crazy. 143 mile an hour wind gusts somewhere in there. That would be devastating. Now, rainfall wise, just a quick look at the southeast. You could see that arc of heavy rain moving up through Tennessee and then long range. You could see some rain moving into the Carolinas. This is a 7-day forecast, but the mountains probably have the highest chance of seeing flooding with this. The Piedmont probably not as much. So if you have friends or family in southeast Louisiana and they have the means to leave, tell them to leave. You need to run from the water and hide from the wind. If they're in a levee protected area and they can't leave, they still need to shelter. Get to the highest floor possible. Be ready to protect yourself from flying debris from the winds as well as the storm surge. Again, the timeline here is this is tomorrow morning, Cat 3. So it'll be a Cat 3 here tomorrow morning, 8 p.m. Basically tomorrow evening into early Monday morning. So that Sunday night, Monday morning time frame, and then Monday morning, 8 a.m. So this is like, 2 a.m., Sunday morning, and down here 8 p.m. Sunday night. So this Monday morning looks to be the worst of this. All prayers and thoughts to everybody on the Gulf Coast. This will be a tremendous storm. Let's hope the levees hold and everyone's safe. But again, if you're not prepared now, you need to be doing that and finishing that up. You got basically 24 hours, and this thing's going to be slamming into the coast.